We just discovered that we have two more conditions that will work to prove that two triangles are congruent. So we started off with side, side, side congruence and side angle side congruence. Now we have two more conditions that we can use, or two more shortcuts that we can use to show that triangles are congruent. So here are some more conditions for triangle congruence. Our first one that we were looking at is angle side angle congruence. Notice the side is between the two angles. So in our diagram, we're going to make sure that the sides that we're talking about are between the two angles that we're talking about. Here's what this one means. If two triangles have two pairs of congruent angles, so our angles match up, they're congruent to each other, and we've got two of them that are matched up, and the sides between the angles have a zoom factor of 1, that means they're equal, then my triangles are congruent. Here's a diagram of what that looks like. And just like I've done before, I'm going to highlight the corresponding parts. So I have angle D is congruent to angle K. So there's one of my pairs of angles. I know that these are congruent because they are marked with that congruent symbol or that congruent notation. So I know that angle D and angle K are congruent to each other. Then I have this angle is marked with 2 hatch marks. It's going to be congruent to the angle that is marked with 2 hatch marks here. So angle E and angle L are congruent to each other. Side length DE has a length of M. Even though it's not a number, I know that it's going to be equal to KL because they have the same variable, M. So I don't know exactly what that number is, but I know that since those are marked with the same variable, M, they are going to be equal to each other. They're going to have a zoom factor of 1. Because if you think of it this way, if I do M divided by M, that's going to give me my zoom factor. And no matter what number M is, it will reduce down to 1. So let's take a look at what statements we have, what facts we know. We know that angle D is congruent to angle K. So that's one of my angles. Then I have side length DE is congruent to side length KL. Those are both marked with the variable M. So that means they're the same. So that's a side. A pair of sides being equal. And then I have angle E is congruent to angle L. So that's a pair of angles that are congruent. So now I have met angle, side, angle. I can write my congruence statement. Remember, the first triangle, you get to choose the order of the letters. I'm going to choose to write DEF. And that is going to be congruent to triangle. Okay, D came first and it corresponds with K. So K will have to come first. E was second. It's congruent to L. It corresponds with L. So L will come second. And F came third and it corresponds with J. So there is my triangle congruence statement. And again, the congruence statements are very handy because not only do they tell you that these two triangles are congruent, but they also tell you which angles correspond to each other by what order they're written in. And that also tells you which sides go together or correspond with each other. Angle, side, angle, congruence. We also have angle, angle, side congruence, which seems like it should be the same thing, but the big difference here is where your side is. So in this first one, our side was between the two angles, ASA. In this one, the side is not between the two angles, so it's AAS. So where that side is will dictate whether you use angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side. So let's take a look at this one. If two triangles have two pairs of congruent angles and a pair of sides not between them, and they have a zoom factor of 1, or they are equal, then my triangles will be congruent. Here's my diagram of two triangles that would satisfy the angle-angle-side congruence condition, or shortcut. So again, I'm going to highlight what pair matches up. Angle M is going to be congruent to angle U because they both have one hash mark. Angle N is congruent to angle V because they have the two hatch marks. And then my side length, MO, is congruent to my side length, TU. Now notice on this one, I don't have a value or a variable, but I have that marking that shows me that those two sides are congruent to each other. That little hatch mark on the side means that those two sides are congruent to each other. So if they're congruent to each other, they're equal. They have a zoom factor of 1. So it doesn't matter that I don't have numbers or even a variable for those side lengths. The markings on the diagram are enough to tell me that those are congruent as well. So you can see in this diagram, the sides are not between my two angles, and that makes the big difference. That's why we would use angle-angle-side as our shortcut for this one instead of angle-side-angle as our shortcut for this one. Okay, so let's write our facts out again, just like we did before. So I know that angle M is congruent to angle U. So there's one of my angles. And then I have angle N is congruent to angle V. That is my other angle pair. And then I have side length MO is congruent to side length TU. So there's my side. That is enough information for me to be able to use angle-angle-side congruence. So now I can write my congruence statement. And again, the first triangle I can write in whatever order I want to write the letters. So I'm going to write MNO. And that's going to tell me how I have to write my second triangle. Don't forget, we're using the congruent symbol here instead of the similarity symbol because we're moving beyond similarity to congruence. M matches up with U. Those are the two congruent ones. Since that M came first, I'm going to write U first. N, I wrote second. That matches up with V. Those two are congruent, so I'm going to write V second. And then O came third. It matches up with T, so T comes third as well. And there is my congruence statement. Now we have 4 congruence conditions or congruent shortcuts. Side, angle, side, 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 angle, side, angle, 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 side. Tomorrow we will learn a 5th one, and that's the final one for congruence shortcuts or congruence conditions.